Yo, what up? Welcome to another episode of Source and Company. I'm your host, Source, of course. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Actually, I'm in the midst of a name change. I changed the Instagram. I just realized I haven't changed the Twitter. The Instagram is at Source, of course. Twitter is still at Smitty Source for now. Probably will change that as well, as long as that name's available. Don't steal it. Also, you can follow the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all under Source and Company. Ready, set? Cool. Let's get into it. Today's company. I've known today's company, I don't know, in over 10 years, maybe like 12 years, something like that. I don't even have to go far into this. He is a two-time, not one, but two-time lung transplant recipient. That's rare. That's rare. I don't even know if I need to give any more introduction. We're going to talk about how we got here and what he has going on now as well. Today's company, Christopher Nalley. What's up, Nalley?
Hey, how's it going, man? Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. I appreciate you taking the time, man. Know you're a busy guy. How's it going? How are you doing?
I'm pretty good considering, we're living in a different world now.
Yeah, absolutely. After going through the last, 18 months or so, a lot of people's perspectives have kind of changed just because you never thought we'd be here. We never thought we'd see anything like this. But your perspective had to change, multiple times for multiple reasons. But has there been anything different that's come from this COVID and quarantine that's kind of affected you or that has changed you in any way?
The mental aspect of COVID has probably been talked about a ton. But, for somebody like me with a suppressed immune system, I take medicine every day to prevent my body from attacking these lungs and causing them to reject. And because of that, it lowers my immune system so much that, COVID could take me out really, really quickly.
Right.
So, yeah, knowing that just a trip to the grocery store could be my last trip to the grocery store ever, or just a casual jaunt to the bar for a few drinks, or a Friday night dinner. It's definitely changed the way I look at not only my life and how I've lived it, but everyone around me. I mean, a lot of people haven't taken this very seriously, which is really sad. But I just have to keep on living for me and protect these lungs and protect the gift that was given to me. So, yeah, it's been difficult, but yeah.
Yeah, understandable. So, when was your last transplant?
Last transplant was July 6th, 2013.
2013. Okay.
Excuse me, June 6th, 2013. My first one was July 6th, 2006. Sorry. 7667, get them confused sometimes.
Yeah, easy to mix up those numbers, man. So it's been 8 years. Have should we start here? Well, sure, we're here. How different, even forget the beginning, like after the first transplant, how different has it been with the second transplant as opposed to the first?
So the first transplant, it went it couldn't have gone any better than it went. I was in and out of the hospital in 10 days. And then 3 months later, I ran my first 8K ever. I think at the time it was like the Wachovia 8K that was accompanied to the Richmond Marathon.
Right.
And it was the first athletic thing I had done forever, because in 2005, I got sick with pneumonia, and which was a side effect of growing up with cystic fibrosis, and my lung function went all the way down to 17%. So just a short walk to the bathroom down the hall was like running a marathon to me. So to actually get out there and run a 10K was amazing. And then the second transplant, because of removing the old lungs and putting another set in, there was a lot of scar tissue to do that, and I lost a lot of blood, I was on dialysis for a long time. My pancreas shut down, and I was in the hospital from the first time 10 days. The second transplant, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and 10 days of that I was in a coma. So a little bit more of a recovery time. I had to go to. I was transplanted both times at UVA. Shout out to Wahoo Nation out there. No disrespect to your shirt, by the way. I had to, when I returned back to Richmond, I had to do pulmonary rehab over at VCU, MCV, and it was a struggle, but I'm happy and healthy now. I'm 40 years old. Never thought I'd be 40. So yeah.
Yeah, because you told me that the life expectancy after the first transplant was like 5 to 7 years. And that was, you said 2006.
Mm-hmm.
You're beating the odds, man. You're beating the odds twice over.
Sure. That's what made this past year that much more scarier. Is the first transplant from 2006 to 2013. That was about 7 years. Now I started rejecting from the first transplant in 2010, so it took a while for me to be relisted and go back and be able to get another life-saving transplant. But the second transplant, we are approaching almost 8 years, and I thought this year with what was going on in the world, I thought my days were numbered. So I'm happy, knock on wood, I'm happy to be here every day. But yeah, and me and my wife, we're just trying to keep me happy, healthy, and a few more years under the belt. Not ready to hang it up yet.
Yeah, I'm sure she's not ready either. Maybe some days, not most days though. Shout out to your wife though. So let's take it all the way back. We'll go back to the beginning, to the days in the 757, right?
Yes, sir. Newport News, bad news, if you will.
Bad news, yeah, indeed. Are you an only child?
I did grow up an only child. My parents divorced when I was 9 or 10 years old, and my dad is remarried. And when he did remarry, my parents started doing foster care. So while I don't have any actual brothers and sisters, I have about 30 or so foster brothers and sisters that are out there in the world. So
wow. Do you have any relationship with any of them?
Well, my parents have adopted 2 of those kids, so I actually do have like 2 sisters that I claim. But some of them I'm friends with on Facebook. They've actually turned into like decent human beings. So a lot of the other foster kids. Yeah.
That's dope. So when did it start for you as far as health wise? Did you know something was wrong when you were young, or was it your parents realize it, or how did that come about?
So when I was born, I obviously had some like breathing issues growing up, and my parents took me to a pediatrician, and I was always misdiagnosed as having a milk allergy or severe asthma, and I got antibiotics and inhalers, and that was the only way to solve the problem. And then when I turned 9 years old, the pediatrician I was seeing told me that I needed to go to Duke University because I might have cystic fibrosis, and that was the only hospital that was testing for that at the time. But growing up, I always knew I thought I just had really bad asthma. I mean, I really couldn't run that long. I was always wheezing. I was always out of breath. But I just, as a kid, you don't really think about this stuff. You just this is who I am. This is my way of life. I'm just going to go out, and play football and play basketball and ride my bike. And, if I have to stop and catch my breath, that's just what you do. But when we went down to Duke University, and they do what's called a sweat test, where they hook up these metal sensors to your arms, and they wrap it in cellophane, which kind of sounds a little like medieval, but the sensors heat up, and then they collect the sweat and they test the sweat, and then that's how they figure out if you have cystic fibrosis or not. So
wow.
And they also do a ton of blood testing and stuff like that, so they check out your genes. And yeah,
I was gonna say, that seems like a simplistic method to figure out something so serious.
so there's an old German I think like sane, where like if you kiss the child's forehead and you taste like salt, then they like, because I mean, no offense, but like this disease is like a northern, European, like Caucasian disease, if you will. So there are definitely people, there are definitely Black people that have cystic fibrosis, and
Yeah.
cystic fibrosis affects everybody a little differently. There's definitely like genetic mutations where some people it affects your pancreas more, where you look very emaciated, and then other people have severe lung problems like I had.
So between 9 and let's see, your first how old were you when you had your first transplant?
I was 26.
26. So between 9 and 26, were you, I mean, I guess as you said, you felt like you were functioning normally because you were a kid just growing up, and it's not like you
Sure.
lived before to know how life was going to feel for whatever age you were. How did was it was it visible? Like, were your issues visible? Did it make you kind of an outcast in a way or anything like that as far as dealing with other kids?
So most of my friends knew that I had cystic fibrosis, and once I explained like what it was, they always understood. They never really treated me any differently, but I definitely I coughed a lot growing up, and if I was someplace where somebody didn't know me, people assumed I had the flu or I was sick. So that
Mm.
definitely like puts a like especially now if you go to the store and you cough, people ask you to leave. So that definitely put like a stigma to me where people didn't want to be around me because they thought I was sick. But then once they found out that, it's genetic, I'm coughing because I'm trying to clear my lungs, not
Right.
because I'm like, it's not a communicable disease. You can't catch it.
So uh, you said you were 24. What was the I guess the last thing that forced you? Was it that you were forced to get the transplant, or because you
So
were on the list,
I,
right?
yeah, well, so long story. I don't even know if I've talked to you about this before. I know we've talked about organ donation before, but so when I was 25, January of 2005, I got pneumonia really bad, from which is like a side effect of cystic fibrosis. You pretty much have a constant lung infection, and you're treated with antibiotics. But like they tell you, if you're sick, if you have the flu, don't go get an antibiotic because your body can build a resistance up to that. So over the course of 25 years, I've had a lot of antibiotics. My body's built up a resistance to a lot of those antibiotics. Excuse me. And I got pneumonia really bad, and so bad that I had to be hospitalized, and I was in a coma for 5 months. Um, and during that time, my lung function went down to 17%. I'm 6'1", and I lost. I was probably like 160 pounds. I got down to 126 pounds at my lowest,
Wow. Sheesh.
and I really looked like a just a frame of myself now. Sometimes I wish I could lose a little bit of weight. But so after I came out of the coma and I went to a pulmonary rehab facility because I was on a ventilator for 5 months, and my body built up like uh, basically it was dependent on that ventilator to breathe. So like your pulmonary muscles kind of rely on that machine, and they get very weak. Same as if you break an arm and you don't use your arm, the muscles in your arm are going to become weak because they're not
Right.
using them. Um, and I went home. I lived with my parents for a year and a half, and I got listed at UVA for a transplant because I was so sick. And that was pretty much it. I was on 24/7 oxygen, and that was the only thing that was going to save me was a lung transplant.
Mm. And you said you were in and out of there, and it went well. It went as well as could be expected, and you were in and out of there in 10 days. Man, and you said how long was it before you ran the 10K?
It was about 3 months. Yeah.
How, Sway? Like, how?
It's funny. You go into the surgery. I went into surgery at 2 p.m. and I remember coming out, and it's like a 12-hour surgery, and I guess they started at like 7 p.m. and I came out at 7 a.m. By 10 a.m. I was breathing on my own. I tell people all the time that, because people ask me, like, please describe, like, what was it feeling like when you took your first breath? And I tell people it was the longest, deepest breath I'd ever taken in my life, because I was so used to very like short, labored, like wheezing breathing. And um, if you've ever put like a piece of gum, like a minty gum, or a mint in your mouth, like an Altoid on, like, and then gone out like on a cold winter's day, and you breathe that first breath of air and it's kind of cool, got that cooling sensation. That's what it felt like, but it like filled my entire chest.
Wow.
And I was like breathing on my own, like in deep breaths for the first time. And uh, by 10 a.m. in the recovery ward, they had me walking around the unit.
Yeah.
And that was mostly because I was hooked up to these chest tubes, and similar to how if you hurt your knee, you get swelling, and sometimes as a pro athlete they'll drain your knee or something like that.
Right.
The chest tubes are basically draining fluid out from all the trauma of the surgery, and they want you up and around and walking so that your body, the lungs moving in and out, will naturally push that like fluid out. So they send you home on a plan to, they want you to walk every day, and be active. And I like kind of pushed that plan. I was running by like the fourth or fifth day being home, and ended up back in the hospital for like, I had a bunch of like irritation around my heart from basically just forcing myself to be more active than I should have been at the time.
Do you think that pushing it make you stronger in the long run, or do you think that pushing it just caused you the issue after that, and you wouldn't have had those issues if you didn't push it?
I
Have you
don't
ever
know,
thought about
because
that? Kind of a convoluted
I
question.
mean, I think that I mean, I'll be honest with you, they don't do a lot of second transplants. Uh, they definitely don't do a lot of third time transplants. So the second transplant, when I went to the doctors, they said, um, the only reason we're doing this is because we know you're stubborn, and then we know you're pigheaded, and we know you're going to fight, and you're going to make it.
Mm,
And no offense to any healthcare provider out there, but me being successful and surviving a second transplant looks good on paper for them. Like, so the me dying on the table does not look good. So they definitely
right.
wanted somebody that's stubborn, has a frame of mind that is going to fight. So that me uh, doing what I'm not supposed to do is definitely helped me. If that answers your question at all, yeah. So
Yeah,
me running when I should have been walking, yeah. Lifeguard blow the whistle, but yeah, I'm still doing it.
man. And you've been, we actually met through sports, through a flag football league that you were, I don't know if you were playing at the time. I've seen you play before, and I've ref games where you played before, but I don't
I've,
remember if
I've,
you were
I've,
playing.
I don't know if I was playing at the time. I definitely was working with the commissioner of the league, and I was helping him take stats when
Yeah.
he did that kind of thing. But yeah, I kind of was off and on playing. You've been a captain of a team. You understand how hard it is to get people to get out in the field. So sometimes that was frustrating.
Yeah. Frustrating, especially for you. You're like, bro, look, I'm out here. Y'all can't be just playing around. Like, if I'm out here, you got
No.
to be
I
here.
mean,
And
that's a discussion for a different day, but I'm sure you've footed the bill for team fees and personal fees and league fees. And I've done the same thing. And then people don't show up, or we have to forfeit, and it just looks bad.
looks bad, feels bad, just bad all around. Bad all around. So I know that you, well, let's at least I want to mention the where the loans came from actually on
Absolutely.
both transplants. So the first transplant, it was a young man that was 16 years old named Ryan. What can you tell me about Ryan?
So Ryan grew up in Gloucester. He without giving too much like intimate detail of how he passed away, he was at his grandmother's house on July 4th. Um, they were lighting off fireworks on the beach. It started to rain, and what separated his grandmother's home from the beach was just some like rock, like a rock erosion wall. And he was wearing flip-flops, and they ran in to try to get out of the rain, and he just slipped and fell and hit his head. And because of that, he suffered some brain trauma. He was in the ICU, and then they eventually made the decision to donate his organs. And because they made that decision, and he was signed up as an organ donor when he got his driver's license, I was able to benefit from that greatly, I might add.
Greatly, yes, indeed. And I have to mention that you're actually the reason that I'm an organ donor, because I never really thought about it before, but I remember it must have been prior to the second transplant, because I feel like there was a push to get more organ donors by you, and I was like, I have no reason not to. It's not like I have any reason to be against doing it, so let me sign up. My wife was like, finally, because she was already an organ donor, so
about time.
Yeah, right. Get on the list. And you mentioned to me before, and I know you kind of had a relationship with his mom, or maybe
I did.
little bit.
She knew Richmond fairly well. So she would, a lot of Ryan's friends lived up here in Richmond. They went to VCU. So we met, we ran a 10K together, the Monument 10K. And then she would come up here. We'd have brunch, we'd have dinner. I had a really good relationship with her. She actually was diagnosed with cancer and passed away a week before my second transplant. So that was a little sad. But a lot of people have said that, I got the second, the call for the second transplant because, Ryan needed his lungs back.
Wow.
So my time with them was over.
Indeed, indeed. And then you had the second transplant, a week after that, and that donor's name was Hans. And Hans was 23. I don't think I've heard anything. I don't think I've heard anything about Hans. Anything you can tell me about him?
Sure. Hans was a great kid. His mom said that he was a very give his shirt off his back type person. I would have loved to meet him and hang out with him and know him. He was an avid skateboarder. Could have been on the pro circuits doing skateboarding stuff like Tony Hawk, but just not. He really just wasn't. That wasn't for him. He didn't want to deal with apparently the bureaucracy of like sponsors and stuff like that. So he was out one afternoon with some friends. They were skateboarding. He said he had a headache. He didn't fall or anything. He didn't hit his head. He just said he had a headache, and they went back to his friend's house, and he took a nap, and he never woke up. He had a brain aneurysm in his sleep. So, but they, when they couldn't wake him up, they took him to the hospital, and he was still breathing thanks to the paramedics. And again, he was signed up to be an organ donor, but he was clinically brain dead, and so there was no bringing him back. But because he was signed up to be an organ donor, I was able to receive another gift from someone.
Man, so 2 times. How rare? You mentioned that. Well, we know you mentioned that. What, two or three, maybe third time transplant recipients. How
for
rare?
lungs? For lungs, 3 times is pretty rare.
Lung, yes, specifically to lungs. How rare is 2 times?
It happens. It doesn't happen a whole lot. Like I said, that you got to be kind of a special breed for the doctors to want to take a risk. Even just doing one transplant, especially being lungs. Come on, man. These are the things that give you life. Like we're talking right now because of lungs. Like these are not. And I'm not underestimating anybody who had a kidney or a liver or a heart. That is obviously anytime you have a transplant or have surgery, period, that is a rough thing. We were not designed to have surgery. Okay. We were designed to live and then pass away. So, but for the lungs, it is pretty rare to do a second one just because there's so much that goes into that.
I know that you used to travel around. I don't know if you still do it or have done it. Obviously, you haven't done it recently because of COVID and quarantine and all that. But you used to go around and speak at different I don't even know, conferences maybe?
Sure. Yeah, I used to work a lot with UNOS, which is the United Network, not UNOS Pizza, but United Network of Organ Sharing, which is actually based here in Richmond. They are the ones that connect the donors with the recipients. So when you always hear about the list, like you're on a list, you're listed for your transplant. So it's not a list in the aspect of like importancy or rank. It's based on need, number one. But so someone like when I was really sick and I was on 17% lung function, I would be higher than somebody that had 25% lung function, so to
Gotcha.
speak. So, but it's all randomized because everybody's different. Like we're all different blood types, we're all different heights, we're all different weights, we're all different ages. So what might be good for me, like a transplant wise, like a set of lungs, might not be good for somebody else. So luckily I'm O positive, so like I'm a universal receiver of organs. I'm fairly like middle of the road height, 6'1". So um, in essence, you couldn't take a small child's organs and put them in me. They need to be somebody like a similar height and weight. So, but so I work with them. When something happens to someone, uh, the hospitals are mandated by the government to call when someone passes away or is brain dead, and they have to call a organ procurement organization like LifeNet Health, which is here in Richmond. And then they go out and they assess whether this person can be an organ donor or not. They speak with the family if the person isn't already on an organ donor registry, like a list, like you would sign up at the DMV. And once they do that, they make the call to UNOS, and then UNOS pairs it up with like somebody that's waiting on the transplant list. So I've done a lot of work with them, a lot of speaking engagements. I've worked with LifeNet Health doing some I used to speak at public schools, high schools, mostly like driver's ed classes, try to let people know, like especially kids when they first get their license, it's very important to become an organ donor because we're all not going to be around here forever. So it's very important you could save somebody else's life, with your untimely passing. We don't want anybody to pass away, but there are people that can benefit from you passing away. So
And that's
definitely a
you,
gift.
that's you twice over. The reason I brought that up, I wasn't even going to ask that, but I brought it up because I was about to say this is like heavy to talk about.
Sure, absolutely.
Does it
It's death,
ever
it's dying, it's morbidity. Like, yeah, it's
does it ever get overwhelming for you? Because I mean, I'm sure people ask you at different points in times, they catch you off guard and ask you about something, and then speaking on it publicly, does it ever get like overwhelming?
I've had, and I'm usually an open book when I give these talks and speeches and tell people about my own experience as an organ recipient. And I've been asked like everything out of the book. But you know, nothing that like embarrasses me or anything when somebody asks me that. I definitely was super close with my first donor's mom. I'm definitely very, very close to Vicky, which is my second donor's mom. Um, I just traveled to Colorado a few months ago to see her, and um, I do definitely suffer from a lot of survivor's guilt because I see how these people who have lost a loved one, like, are so affected by like them being gone, and then to know that I carry a piece of their loved one inside me, and for them to put their head to my chest and hear me breathing, that's basically their loved one breathing for me, but also they're that part of them, their loved one is still alive, and I also feel a lot of like responsibility because when I first met Terry, my donor's Ryan's mom, my main concern was I was in my 20s. I was very young. I'm going out. I'm doing 20-year-old things, like I'm going to bars. I'm going out every night, and I did not want a uh, somebody to judge me. Like I've been through enough. Like I don't need someone to judge me. But I also feel like a level of responsibility. Like I have to take care of these gifts. And she told me, I'm never going to judge you. Vicky has said the same thing. My son is not here, and I want you to live your life for them. I danced with Vicky at my wedding. I had one of my first dances with her because she's not going to have a first dance with her son. at his wedding. So it's very important for me to carry on these donors' memories. And I do understand there's a level of responsibility there, and there is definitely a level of like survivor's guilt that I suffer from. But I have been told by a volunteer once that between the first transplant and the second transplant, all the donation work that I did, all the awards aside for my organ donation work, I probably saved my own life by getting someone to sign up to be an organ donor.
That's real. That's real.
Yeah.
Sheesh. It's a lot, man. It's a lot for me to hear. So I know it's a lot for you to live, you know. Let's throw this in just to lighten the mood for a quick second.
Sure. Yeah.
The Chicago Bears.
Thought we were going to lighten the mood.
For me, it's a lot. Man. So I don't even know where to go. I just wanted to say the Chicago Bears and get your reaction, really.
We are definitely in a Super Bowl drought. Haven't been there in a while. I guess the last was 2007, 2008-ish when Peyton Manning shut that down. I'm excited. I've seen what Justin Fields has brought to the field, but I am also mystified at our GM. I don't understand the moves he makes. While trading up for Fields was great, now that we see him on the field and what he's doing, I'm still clueless about the Trubisky move up and grab. I had a lot of confidence in that guy. Like he had bright moments, and then he had moments where I'm like, what is going on in his head? And then we pick up Andy Dalton in the offseason. Did you not watch him on the Cowboys last year? Like, what? Someone has blackmail material on Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, and they're withholding it, and they're making them do these dumb moves. It's got to be somebody in the Green Bay Packers organization too. It's ridiculous.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I heard the other day, Andy Dalton was like, "Yeah, Fields is going to be great, but it's my time right now." I wanted to laugh. I like Andy Dalton, generally speaking. I think he got a bad rap in Cincy, not Dallas, because that was pretty rough. But yeah, so your expectations are low.
I mean, as a Bears fan, I rue the day that we ever got rid of Lovie Smith. I mean, we fired the guy after a 10-6 season because we lost a playoff game, or didn't make the playoffs. Actually, we didn't lose a playoff game. We didn't make the playoffs because of the Minnesota Vikings won their last game. That's why we didn't make the playoffs. So, as a Bears fan, and in the words of Lovie Smith, if we beat Green Bay twice a year, that's a Super Bowl for me. That's all I care about. So the expectations are fairly low. Hearing that Aaron Rodgers might not be returning to Wisconsin, that I was living this summer. I was really living high. Yeah.
Yeah, I think after this season, you don't have to worry about him now. I think he'll ride out into the sunset.
You know what?
Leave.
You know what? With my luck as a Bears fan, they went from Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and we have had almost the same amount of quarterbacks as the Cowboys have had in that span of time. So I'll reserve my right that they will like probably draft the next coming of Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. So
man, so you mentioned to me earlier that you had run 35 races back when you turned 35, the year that you turned 35 or after you turned 35. Why? Why?
My knees asked the same question. Why are you doing this to us? And that's another reason I don't run races anymore, because my knees were like, we're done now. No, I had obviously I'd run a marathon with my first transplant with the first set of lungs. And when I turned 35, it was 2 years after my second transplant. And I was getting married the same year. And I don't know. I just thought that it was a good way to honor my latest donor. and run these races in his honor. And it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do at 35 years old. But yeah, no, they were fun. And I tried to mix it up. We did some we did like a wipeout run with all like the obstacles and stuff. We did like a savage race. We did a Spartan, which was like really rough. Uh, and then like some bubble runs and like I don't know, any 5K that I could find in Richmond or like the surrounding like DC or North Carolina, I tried to like mix it up and try to make it fun. So it wasn't all brutal races, but it was definitely wear and tear on the body.
Respect, respect. And you said you that was the year you got married to your lovely bride, Martina. Nalley, I'm gonna tell you the truth. First time I saw your wife, she was your girlfriend. And I was like, why is she with Nalley?
Yeah, you get that a lot. Yeah, I sometimes I have a reputation as not the nicest individual in the world, and also they probably are just like, yeah, she's a dime. Why is she with him? So yeah.
I mean, again, she got to have a heart of gold for real, because
Sure.
I mean, in my opinion, from outside looking in, because she knows, even though she loves you, but she knows that she's married. She knows what she's getting into. She knows
Sure.
there's
Sure.
some, I guess, limitations, or maybe not even limitations, but things that may come up that may be
Absolutely.
hard. You ever feel that you ever think she's regretful? Is that might be too much of a
No, definitely not. So, talking about marriage, like I wasn't planning ever to get married, and that wasn't because I enjoy the bachelor life. I was trying to be somewhat responsible with my life. I didn't want to marry someone knowing that I'm basically looking at the clock every day. When's this time going to run out? So I didn't want to marry someone and leave them a widow. I also didn't want to I don't want to have kids because I don't want to leave somebody fatherless. So, and that's just like, I matured that way in an early age, knowing that I wasn't here for a long time, just here for a good time. And so I carried that through my 20s and 30s. And then finally, this woman wore me down. And she repeatedly has told me, sorry for your luck, you're stuck with me. So, yeah.
You're a
So
blessed
she invited this mayhem, not me.
She brought this on herself.
Yeah.
Man. So you mentioned to me, actually, right before we went on, you mentioned that you are doing a little something different coming up here soon. You got a podcast on the way. It sounds very interesting. Anything that involves beer, I'm in for. Tell me about your podcast that's coming up.
Well, it's been in the works for a while. Obviously I had a lot of time on my hands come the last 18 months. So a couple of friends of mine, we would have evening, afternoon, like we're done with the work. They'd come over and we kick it on my porch and just like, shoot the shit. And uh, eventually we were like, why don't we listen to so many podcasts? Why don't we make a podcast? So we came up with a name. It's called Friday Night Flights, kind of like Friday Night Lights, Friday Night Fights. And we're basically a partnership with breweries, and we'll drink a beer, and we'll discuss the day's events and what's going on in sports and pop culture, and just hopefully keep everyone entertained. I like to keep it light, but we're gonna try not to get too political or anything like that. We don't want to, we don't want to eliminate somebody from listening.
Indeed, indeed. Sounds good, man. I mean, like I said, anything that involves beer. Now, I will tell you that I don't know if you're a fan of Drink Champs. Drink Champs. It's a rapper named Nori who has a podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
And recently, probably within the last few days, someone from that's affiliated with Wu-Tang heard that Nalley, that Nori said something. They drink a lot. When I say a lot, they drink shot for this, shot for that, for like 2-3 hours. It goes on and on. So Nori says something. he calls like one of the affiliates of Wu-Tang flunkies because they weren't as successful as the main characters of Wu-Tang. One of them heard that. So now he is heated. He's going on a rant. And I'm just saying, don't let the alcohol get you to the point where you say something crazy that you really didn't mean to say. That's all I'm saying.
No, not gonna happen. No, we're gonna keep it PC in there. It might be some inside jokes, but nothing that's gonna offend anybody or come off chauvinist, racist, or anything like that. And we're definitely not attacking any of the people in Wu-Tang. Okay, if you're a member of Wu-Tang Clan, I don't care if you're the guy sweeping the floors. You're a member of the Wu-Tang Clan. You remember the Wu-Tang Clan. You get respect.
Exactly. Well, oh man, I mean, shoot, I think we touched on almost everything that we can talk about. Oh,
Sure.
You want to mention you had the Team Nalley shirts back before the second transplant.
Yep.
And I don't know if you want to mention that at all.
I mean, I'll mention. So I had a friend of mine. His name is Nick Steele, and he came up with these shirts while I was in the hospital. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I was blown away by the support of all the people. So I want to shout out to everybody that bought a T-shirt. This is over 8 years ago, but still, like, thank you everybody. It helped pay my medical expenses, and it got me on my feet while I was, waiting to return to work. The shirts kind of looked like this, and then they had donatelifevirginia.org on the back. And then a quick shout out to that. Like, if you have any questions about organ donation or anything like that, I'm sure you're gonna post this on Instagram. So just if anybody comments, they can tag me. I'll answer any questions they have. If they want to know how to sign up to be an organ donor, please go to donatelifevirginia.org. Or I know everyone hates to go to the DMV, but if you go to the DMV, you can sign up there as well. You can also sign up online when you go to the DMV if you're just changing registration or paying your taxes. So.
Awesome, good stuff.
Also, shout out to people who got vaccinated. Please get vaccinated.
100%. Man, I appreciate you taking the time and get your vaccination mentioned in there. Did you have any last words for the people? Any last words?
No, you've covered it all. Again, I thank you for having me on. And people say I have a great story. I'm just living. I'm just trying to survive, especially in the worlds that we live in today. But there are definitely people that are still on the transplant list. There's over 100,000 people. Those people are what I would say immunocompromised. People with transplants are immunocompromised. That's why it's very important that everyone get vaccinated so these people can continue to live not just a sheltered life in their house, but they can go out and experience everything that everyone else wants to do. And also, these people waiting on a list, you might be their hero one day if something happens to you. So please sign up and be an organ donor.
Indeed, respect, man. I appreciate you, Nalley. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Christopher Nalley, Source, outchea.